Recording. So we're recording now. So I want to welcome everybody to our Asian Supervision Network. Today we have Choo with us, going to be presenting on emotions and congruence in supervision and coaching. Do you want to introduce yourself for people who do not know you, so people know more about your background? Know that you are a accredited supervisor by EMCC, ESIA. What else would you like people to know about you?
Thanks, Damien. Damien, thanks for always organizing the Asian Supervisors Network, and I'm really happy to be here. We're starting slightly later, but we hope that this will run as smoothly as we can. And thank you for all those who are joining us and staying through. So just introduce myself very quickly. A coach supervisor, executive coach, and Gaylord Strengths, and partner with international coaches and clients. And continuing my transformation journey as a reflective, eclectic coach supervisor. And I always hope to stay as positive as possible and with sense of awe. And accredited with EMCC, both the senior practitioner, the supervisor, as well as early on I did team coaching practitioner. So so I'd like to just share the topic. So just wondering, first, as we are staying tuned in, how are you relating to this topic? When you think of emotions, you think of congruence, maybe just open your speaker and just say, how are you relating to this topic, and what is unfolding when you see congruence or incongruence? So just a point of curiosity, if anybody would like to share. Okay, so if it's not, it's okay, then we'll move on. I will then go on with the topic. If I'm not hearing everyone.
I can share, like I wanted to give other people space, but I can share briefly that what came up for me, and this, I like this image, this path, is because for me, this picture that you have here, like a journey, is a journey to connect with our emotions. And sometimes what can be congruent or incongruent can be what I am experiencing and what I am telling myself rationally. So sometimes incongruences between what I am feeling, my experience, and how I am naming this or how I am thinking about rationally. So that's one of the incongruences, sometimes for me, between the emotional and the rational. Or the story that I tell myself about my emotions.
Yeah, thank you so much for telling. Sometimes we tell our own stories because there is so much in us that we are not inviting ourselves sometimes to come out, and we are sometimes submerging it. And this is actually a real path. I took it in one of the trips I made. I don't travel, I don't go for a lot of trips, but so it's very precious on a real path in Port Dickson. So this is something that I love to see. So I will cover topics related to that, and hopefully it's something kind of came out from my own meandering or navigation this year. I was looking at different topics. Congruence was one of them, as I noticed how my clients are coming in. And I just pick out, as through all the CPD, the Nora Batson's poems or phrases actually draws me to it, that unity is not about oneness. It requires a process of uniting. And it requires that relationality, so that space that we also provide with our clients and the space we relate to others as humans, and to be a participant in a complex system. And this is so true for today, is a desire to be both lost and found in the interrelationships between people, nature, and ideas. So I think there's so much coming up for us, and to be feel comfortable that we can be lost sometimes, and then we sometimes find ourselves again. I just saw someone coming in. So, and then with that, and this is also a stream which I took when I went to Chiang Mai, and I just spontaneously felt, oh, that is so beautiful, connecting to nature. And sometimes we are too busy to look at it, so sometimes we bring it back with us and to be part of that. It can look complex, at the same time it is God's nature. So it's to have the interrelationships. And I just pick up something, and I want not to work from the head, I want to work from the heart. also. So from ICF, it's encouraging that ICF is really recognizing coaching supervision. And when I do my group supervision, um, coaches are coming back to us for asking for, as they get re-accredited for PCC, the coaching supervision hours are actually available, not only to support them and also in their process of re-accreditation. But one key thing that came up for me was a lot of them say they sometimes feel a sense of isolation, but yet when they come out of it, they have a sense of belonging. And increased resourcefulness. And that's the inquiry and we'll ask ourselves, how is that sense of sense of belonging? Like I always come here, I feel a sense of belonging. Damien always runs this session in such a beautiful way that I feel, and I really appreciate that it's run at our time zone, not having to stay up really late in the night. So, and yet coming out from a sense of increased resourcefulness. So that's my inquiry as we go further. And these are also pictures of flood. Theirs was taken over the years. So I'm going to cover congruence from two angles. One is congruence as we as a coach or we as a supervisor, when we connect with what matters with the coaches, to find in the reality they find themselves in offering congruence, us being congruent, being fully oneself and fully genuine. So who we are as a person actually matters also. So as we come in fully oneself and fully genuine, because there's a felt experience. They sense when you are there, not only present, but fully genuine. So that's congruence also. And it also came from Carl Rogers. I stumbled on the Carl Rogers one because Carl Rogers is the one that started off from physiotherapy and all that. They don't look at it from a patient, but look from a client. And I always love the word client, that we're looking at our coaches as clients. When we see them as clients, we see them differently. And we also know that as a person, we're not perfect, but you are good enough. I am human, and being human is who I am. And then unconditional positive reward. It's not easy. Very sometimes we have our own bias as a coach supervisor or as a coach. We have own bias, and yet we want to give complete acceptance. So our intention wants to be a positive intention. So having empathetic understanding and appreciation, how might we be counter-working with the shadows or the challenges that they face so that it be brought in a light that is safe. They feel safe. That when we run the supervision, the coach actually comes in with a feeling of stuckness, there's a feeling of emotions, and yet when they come in, they can feel safe. And then when they come out, they can feel resource. So it's a pleasure to see that happening. So in group supervision, when we run with external coaches, one of the things I notice is that when we give that spaciousness and neutrality, letting them share what's coming up from them, let them express coming in with whatever emotions they may feel. It could be frustration, they could be helplessness, but not hopelessness, but sense of helplessness sometimes, and notice how they may be triggered. And then reflect on inner conflicts, because when a coach feels incongruent, and why is that incongruence? Sometimes our coaching programs or coaching arrangements requires it to be structured, has to be at goals. Whereas for some would like to be fluid, they like to emergent. So coaching has evolved to be more and more augmented or supplemented with professional development and growth as part of training, part of leadership, and therefore coaching has somehow become one with some structure and goals. And that's where some coaches may struggle and might find an incongruence. Yet when we give them an expansive in richness and diversity, because when someone comes into like this time zone, you can come in for different This time zone is perhaps not not the perfect time for a cross culture, but I do, let's say, when we run something at 10 a.m., then US can join, and 5 p.m., Europe can join. There's a richness and diversity. So that allows the differences of thinking and the co-creative with ideas and perspectives, and people don't feel alone. So let's pause here for a while. Is anything standing out for you? Aiza or Nani, anything standing out for you before I move on?
No, it's okay. You can continue because I'm digesting and reflecting on my experience as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll go to this one. So there are emotions. How might we be with the complexity, what may be happening for the coaches in their client systems? So emotions, we will notice that there could be, many of us may be familiar with the fight flight one. And then we notice that, and I mentioned just now, sometimes coaches come in with frustration. I have seen in supervision team coaching, a coach can come in with anger, a coach can come in with anxiety, a team coach, and then they shift. But it takes harder for team coach to, because there's so much more complexities. In this case, recognizing we have emotions, and then from negative emotion, how are we going to more constructive, positive emotions? In group supervision, I've seen a lot more opportunity where coaches come out with connecting to what they care about, their passion. And we actually would like to invite people to say, what do you appreciate? What are you grateful for today? And with that, you connect to your heart, you connect to your family, you connect to your purpose, connect to who you are as a person, not just a professional. And therefore, you're moving from more positive emotion, and that allows us to be even more high performance in that. And this is taken for hard math. I actually was inspired by one of the sessions EMCC was running, and one of the speakers actually covered that topic, and I got interested in this area as well. So if I move here, what builds and nurtures? And I was at the restaurant with my daughter, and we had a cafe, and it was with lots of trees. And I looked up and I saw all this glass, and I could see the trees. So it's also nice. At the same time, there was this metal structure, so I got fascinated because I kind of like scientific looking things. At the same time, I like nature. So coming from that background, so I said, oh, that's fascinating. And you can hear the sound of rain with the leaves or the branches batting down. Of course, I am now afraid that rain is too heavy. There is always a chance of floods, and so much damage happens around the world when rain is too heavy. So now my emotions of rain has been tainted. I used to just love seeing rain. So I'm always thankful when it rains and then it stops. So heightened awareness of who we are and what we care about. Purpose, how we apply our values align with our purpose. Like a coach comes in and has their purpose. A client comes in and they have their purpose. How are we aligning, inviting them to align their values and purpose? And then how are they feeling nourished? So I'll go into this one here. So this I'd like to open for discussion as the emotions and congruence. So in a situation where emotions might be in play as showing up in the system, what happens when values and the mission are not aligned? And what might be at play in the system on expectations when the team coach, team leader, and team member? I just want to curious, how many of you have been involved in team coaching or supervision or team coaching? Okay, yeah, Damien does run courses there as well. Faisal, I'm seeing you nodding. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go to the next slide first, then I'll open for discussion. The next slide here talks about how are we aligned and authenticity where one own values, beliefs, and feelings match. And I've seen situations where the coach just comes in very, very tight. The body is very tight. And then they notice it's actually their values that's coming in the way when they're working with the team. And what is happening when they work with the vision and the mission of the program they're supporting as a team coach. So coaches, how do they stay in tune with their own values and feelings? How to prevent from projecting own beliefs onto the client? And therefore also how they will regulate and notice their own reactions. And that's something that supervisors may be able to support the coaches. And then if helping the coach to reflect how their own values might influence how they are being as they become aware of the inner state and bias. So this one here. So let's look at the team coaching situation and say, okay, in your team coaching, think about one where you have seen that the mission and values completely aligned to you and you're feeling so good about it. And in another, you find, oh, I don't get it. I don't understand what they're doing. Why they're doing this? This is not right. It's totally conflicted. You feel your values are not aligned with the mission of that program. And you don't have a team coach. You just use your real life situation where you are in an organization maybe, and you find that what the organization is trying to do, and you just don't get it. You don't feel comfortable. So what happens to your body there? What happens to how do you get over that? That's one scenario I'd like to invite you to think about. Then when you talk about performance, when a team leader works with a team and there's certain standards in organizations, what high performance is. Therefore, the dialogue that's happening may actually be quite a tense dialogue. Are you skilled enough to do this? Do you know how to do this? So that kind of language or emotions can get carried away when a team leader works with a team, and sometimes the team coach takes on the same persona. So that tension of energy comes through in there, because high performance culture expects everyone to be a skill, being able to do it, and things like that. So that's one of the dynamics that may be happening. And there could be expectations. So I will pause here I'll stop sharing and ask and allow some reflection. So stop sharing and allow some reflection. So that's an interaction. So far, what I was sharing, is there any scenario that comes to mind that you would like to reflect on and think about when it could be your own experience being a team member or a team leader and you're seeing that's happening and there's an incongruence for you? Woody, you want to say something?
Oh, yes. I just want to ask something. It is often when I get the client, there is one problem that you mentioned when the missions and the values doesn't align. So, because especially in Indonesia, many professional work to earn the money, and sometimes even though their value is different with the company, sometimes they must do it professionally. And sometimes when the missions of the company collide with the values, sometimes it's very stressful for them. So how I, as a coach, can help them and align them and congruence what they want to achieve between the professionals and their jobs.
So I won't answer it first. I was asked how, because I don't want to be here as the expert, but I'm sure a lot of people have ideas. So I'm going to restate that. So Budi, keep yourself on a video. I think what I'm hearing us say is, and I would like to go in perhaps two angles. One is you recognize that your values is incongruent with the values of that mission. And if you have a choice, you may say, okay, let's refine this, let's recontract this, and say, okay, this is how I think we could do this. Because that's very important is our own core values. I'm going to use one example. When I was a coach and a group of people came in and the HR wanted to use the coaching arrangement so that they get us a report on their performance. And I say that's not the right thing to do. It's not ethical. So I was not congruent with that, what they wanted to do, but I took on a positive position and an assertive position to recontract and also provide an alternative. I say, we will provide, I'll provide a Google Sheet where people will enter something to say what they've learned and what they'll be doing, and you can see the results coming out from what they are doing. So there's openness and transparency. So I could sense that incongruence, and I quickly step in and do something. So that's one way of doing it. There are also situations where you feel totally out of situation, therefore you have to step off. And another situation might be, I think Sunny is coming, so she might be wondering what's happening. So Sunny, I think there was a mix-up in terms of timing, so apologies. We started at about 11:35 my time, which is already about 25 minutes into the session, and we're going on to another 25 minutes. Yeah, so now we're talking about what happens when there is incongruence, and maybe Sunny, you can also share a perspective. Budi, would you like to restate your question? And then Sunny can actually also hear from you. Oh, all the rest are coming in now.
We're going to have a few people joining us in a few
Maybe we
minutes.
pause.
So we want to pause and wait for a couple of minutes to accept everybody joining.
Okay, then I'll back the slides so that people can see something.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But I think that the last slide was a good slide to summarize. Hi,
okay,
Jaya,
we'll
welcome. Welcome, good seeing you. We changed the time in the United States, but it was kind of confusing because we should have started 1 hour earlier, Sunny, so that was my mistake in the flyer. So that's what happened. So it was a bit confusing. So that last slide, I think Sinjo was very good to give us a context here where you see lack of congruence. Particularly, we're talking about Tom coaching supervision. How does it look like when you're working with teams?
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Damien. So as those coming in, I'll speak a little slower here so that people can slowly come in. Yeah, so we started the topic of when we are feeling emotions can come into the space, both as a client and as a coach. And in this context is about team coaching. I did cover a bit on group supervision just now. So in team coaching, you might see that, I'll just go one slide back. Okay, so what emotions might be at play that is showing up in a system? And in this context is the team coach is feeling a lot of emotions in reflecting on their team coaching arrangement and what they're doing and serving. They're feeling, one scenario is one team coach says, this is a transformational project. This is about, I relate to the mission of the project, but I can't relate to what's happening to the team. So then his values becomes triggered. His values say, I believe in what's best for people, and my core values are triggered. So when my core values are triggered, what happens? So that's one scenario. So I'm still seeing people coming in. So I'm going to go back to this slide here so that we can catch up. So here, if the team coach looks at mission and values alignment, and then looks at sometimes what is the expectations of the sponsor, and sometimes the team leader has their own expectations. Our team has joined us. Our team is started about 25 minutes before this because of the time change. So apologies, we're going to continue on to about another 25 minutes. So I'm bringing this slide now to bring us back into context. So team coaching, and we're talking about the incongruence. So I'm going to let you see this slide and that question, and then I'm going to pause to ask for reflections. And what happens when you have stakeholders or sponsors having a high expectations or different expectations? That's one. What happens when you as a team coach has your own expectations of the team leader, and the team? What happens to the roles and boundaries of what's between the team coach, team leader, and the team? And when we say psychological safety, what does that really mean? Because a team coach may come in and say, I'm giving you psychological safety, therefore, I'm expecting you all to be able to open up and answer. But what happens when the agenda of the sponsor is that I'm also testing the team, that there may not be psychological safety? If someone doesn't perform, what happens? Who then takes the responsibility for the continuation of the psychological safety and the emotions of the team? And sometimes you end up being the rescuer. So there are many complexities here. It's complex enough in coaching, but it's a lot more dynamics is happening in team coaching. So go back to this slide, and then I'm going to open up. So my last question here is expectations of team coach, team leader, and team. And how are you contracting with the sponsor? If the sponsor has an agenda. Sometimes there's a question just now is, do you step back and say, I'm recontracting with you? If it doesn't work, are you okay to professionally walk away? So if it's against your own core values, you've done everything you can, you may want to walk away. So that's something. So commercial side and your own contract, your own professional values or core values has to be aligned for you to feel and enjoy the work that you're doing. So that's something I'm offering for a reflection. So I'll stop sharing so that we can hear some discussions here. So let's have Budi ask the question again. Reframe the question if you like, so that the others can join in.
Okay, my question is, if we found that the team, maybe the question is, what happens if the team leader values is different with the sponsor value, so it's not aligned? How he or she can do the team coaching well and align with the sponsor's agenda?
Okay, so that's the team leaders not aligned with the sponsor. Okay, so I'm going to make it a little easier and focus on the team coach. Let's say, what if the team coach values is not aligned? So for now, we're focusing, let's say, on the team coach. The team coach values are not aligned with the sponsor. That's one. So let's open that for discussion. Because let's say the team coach, and there's a lot of interest now in getting team coaching certification. So I can sense a desperation in the ecosystem. Like team coaches are just wanting to jump in and get certified. And therefore it's a danger of getting compromising your values. It's like when you speak up and say, sharing confidential information this way is not ethical. Can I do it a different way? How can we measure where they are if you need to measure a base, and then how it is as they improve? So question here is for Sunny and team who just joined. What's coming up for you as we are hearing about maybe non-alignment between the team coach and sponsor, or non-incongruence of their own values with what's happening in the program? Any perspective you'd like to share, Sunny and team?
Well, Choo, you brought up it's an ethical issue, I think, for the coach, the team coach, but there's also, I was thinking, a difference between an internal team coach and someone who's external also, because there is perhaps a different agreement and relationship. I mean, you talked about the complexities, but if you're internal, it's very different, I think, than being external. I just wanted to add that on top of Budi's question. And it's a tough one, but I also think that the team coach should be having a supervisor. And that is one of the things that will help that team coach, work through the issues, the ethical issues that are presented.
So the scenario I brought in is team coaches bringing them to supervision. So very real, what you're saying. These are real scenarios where, and you're very right. There's one team coach that actually is sponsored by the company, and I believe he became a team coach, and the team leader and the team is internal. So there is a different level. Is what you can do is also you also navigate within the organization's expectations and standards of performance. So that's what the other angle is, that being a team leader yourself before, and then you become a team coach, what happens is how do you step out and not step into the role of the team leader? Because the team coach then starts beginning to play the team leader role, then what happens to the team leader? So that's one angle. And also directly, instead of coaching the whole team or reflect and allow them to discover it, then what happens if the team coach starts telling the team member that you're not competent enough? So there are a lot, you're right, in an internal situation is even more complex because you forget how to not overstep your roles. So it's overstepping of your roles and clarity of your roles and boundaries in terms of who plays the team coach, the team leader, team and team members. So how do they co-create? So that's one perspective. So, okay, so let's hear also from the others. I'm going to use the other example where you actually look at the emotions of one where your core values are not aligned. Example, one coach, let's say team coach, believes that it's a transformational, therefore he's also helping the community and it's good for the community. Whatever changes is happening through this program is good for the community. But what happens is the people within the team may lose their jobs. So you then feel very conflicted. How to then be comfortable to be in that system when you feel that something is being compromised? So how can you then step up or have some other discussion? So that's sometimes that you end up in that system and you're outside, you're external coming in. It's worse, it gets complicated when a team coach also plays a consultant role. So knowing that you're playing multiple roles, and very often in the Asian context, you tend to play more than one role because of cost effectiveness. You're the expert, you know everything. Therefore, you could also be the team coach and the consultant, and that's when you overstep. And then you say, oh my gosh, what's happening here? And you come in so conflicted. And then you realize it's actually a transformation. And then the word transformation came out, it stood out, and they say, okay, some things need to change. What is this change? So what change do I want to be comfortable to accept, and which change I'm not comfortable to accept? So the words transformation suddenly took a different spin for that team coach. So that's one angle here. I'm going back to the slides. I see Sunny looking quite perplexed because you joined in a bit late. Let me hear from anyone else first. Faiza, Jaya, Ina, Nani. Anyone else you'd like to say something if I go back to the slides? And hopefully I can clarify so Sunny won't look so perplexed. I'm watching her face. Anything else?
Back to your previous point, there is a bit about the values misalignment between the sponsor and the coach, and I get that. For me, it's even, I don't know if it's more complicated or just more pronounced when the sponsor is also the team leader, because often team leaders will come in and say, I want coaching for my team, and part of it is their values are that I see the team as broken, not me, and I actually don't see myself as part of the team, but I want you to coach the team. And I've had values misalignment with that because it's like, no, you need to step away from being the leader in the discussions, but still be the leader of the team. And that's an interesting dynamic.
Yes, it's so true because that's the one that we say alignment back to what is the role with the sponsor.
Mm.
So say,
So since I also want to add that going back to Buddhist question, you were talking
yes,
about differences in values, but at
Mm.
the heart of the job of the team coach as
Mm.
external team coach, Sunny, because it is different if you're an internal team coach. You
yes,
still need to look into that, but because you're part of the system, sometimes it's more difficult to look at the relationships. But when you come from outside, you can look, and it's very common that there is lack of alignment and incongruences. Most of the time, there are incongruencies between what the leader wants, what the sponsor wants, what the team members want, in terms of values, in terms of expectations, in terms of goals, in terms of methodology. So this makes our job so complex and interesting. But this is one of the places to look at, how these incongruencies show up, because they're going to be showing up, how they show up, and how we navigate that. And now the other conversation that you're bringing is a really interesting one. It's an ethical conversation. And I was thinking that maybe we can bring this to our next session, that we meet together to continue discussing these ethical concerns that we have, because it's just we're going to the ethical part. How do we deal ethically with this incongruency, particularly when we are also feeling that something is not closing for us or is not right, or
yes,
so we can continue the ethical piece later if people are
yes, David.
interested. And there is, by
So
the
I
way,
just,
there is a conference coming up. I don't know if you have heard. It's not a good time for Asia because it's in Europe, but there is an
okay,
ethical conference coming up in a couple of weeks. What I think it's important for all of us as coaches and supervisors to learn more and pay more attention. So I'm thinking, Sunny, I don't know if you're planning to go to that conference. No, you're not sure yet. Okay. So it will be good to bring this information to this network so people can learn about what's happening. Sorry,
yeah, it's very,
we can talk about
it's
that
very
later.
When you go more into team coaching, there's a lot more challenges and in contracting with the sponsor in terms of your alignment to core values and ethical. So you want to feed the congruence, and that's why we use the word congruence. My team says, in there are opportunities when I've done supervision one-to-one and I've done group. The one-to-one, the coach, the team coach actually dialogues with the CEO, for example, and says, okay, your agenda is this, or the team leader, you need to not play this role. You want to actually have and they actually have the agenda of wanting to test the people and see how they're showing up and things like that. So we got to be very careful about what is the agenda of the sponsor, and then and what are they looking out for. So then we cannot provide psychological safety when they have this agenda. So that's when we then want to be congruent to our own values and profession as a coach. So if we have we would like to be, in a way, assertive, to be able to contract ethically, to be able to state that out front and clarify that first at the beginning before you actually embark on a project. Be able to step away from that contract if it's not going to work, because it's not right for you. If you don't feel it's right for you, trust that something else will come along and then you'll construct something that will make sense and that you are aligned to your values. So in internal, so that's where if I were to hear what Budi says, internal, I've been in internal situations a lot in my corporate world. And one of the things is our own authority, means be able to be assertive and to speak up. And we use the word congruence, means I can be fully myself. I can be fully authentic and fully genuine. Therefore, I can speak to a senior person and say, sir, or Mr. So-and-so, this is not quite right. This is not good for the team. There could be better ways of doing it. So have that dialogue, even in an internal situation, because if we are not doing justice to the organization or the people in the organization if we compromise. If we continue to compromise, then the high performance culture is not really high performance culture. So it's a culture of being able to be vocal, authentic, and be able to speak our minds and say what's right. So that's why being conscious of that, like noticing when you're becoming in a drama triangle. So if I move on to does that make sense for you, Tim?
Yeah, lots.
Yes, thanks, team. Yeah, because it's as you say, it's not an easy area, and it's good that we coaches are going in to that area and actually speaking and our minds and actually constructing it positively in the interest of all. So as I was looking at here, is the ultimate is to allow ourselves to be and others to be complex. Then sometimes we find ourselves the boundaries. And actually, we're talking about the boundaries in this way is very metaphorical. Just now we were talking about hard boundaries because you're talking about ethical. But here I'm talking about, as we interact with people, how are we seeing the boundaries differently? So this is opposite of contrasting clear boundaries, and here boundaries in certain situations allow not to limit but to connect. So how can the boundaries be connecting us rather than limiting us? So maybe that's a challenge that we want to have here. So I'm just if I may share 1-2 more slides because of those who missed, for Tim and Sunny who came in before we close. Because about noticing the time. Let me quickly. So I just want to share back. I want to share back a few slides here, because we talked about how supervision increases the resourcefulness. And sometimes this is group supervision with the individual coaches. And then there's a sense of isolation. At the same time, you want them to have a sense of resourcefulness. And how is that possible? The concept of congruence here, one is not only the congruence of our values, but here is we coming in, connecting as supervisors with what matters to the coach in the reality they find themselves in, offering our own congruence, being fully oneself and fully genuine. So when we are fully oneself, we are wholesome and fully genuine, then we feel this, the coaches in the session can feel it. And there's unconditional positive regard, acceptance, and empathetic understanding. So the coaches who come in with a lot of challenges or sense of being stuck, they can actually go away, become resource. As we provide them that spaciousness and neutrality, like you say, you were a team. So that's why there's a whole topic in internal supervision I'm doing somewhere else, that sometimes there could be a lack of neutrality when you're doing internal. So in this context is group supervision of external coaches. You do not know their clients, and therefore there can be neutrality and there's spaciousness. And sometimes a coach comes in with a conflict. I actually would like to be very emergent. I want it to be fluid. But in the coaching program, I sign up off to support the client, requires some structure, requires some goal setting, and I'm totally conflicted with this. Or my client comes in and say, tell me what to do. Give me a checklist, give me tools. And the coaches come in and say, I feel so helpless or frustrated when every time my client tells me, give me tools and tips. So that's what happens very often when coaches come in and they feel there's conflict. And therefore, how do you co-create with ideas and perspectives, and they can come away with resource? So one last chart. And therefore, how are we supporting our coaches to move from a sense of frustration to a sense of purpose? They are feeling a purpose, and therefore they can go with a sense of joy. How do we move from a sense of anger? For those in team coaching, sometimes you feel so much fear and frustration and anger. How to come back to the place of love and kindness and compassion. So it's to recognize the right emotions that's coming in, and as a client, where there's a coach or team coach that's coming in, there are emotions that's coming in, and it's to be acknowledging it and therefore allowing them to process it, and then with knowing internally what's happening, then they can move forward. So that's one of 2 other slides. And this last chart I'm going to share is what builds and nurtures, evoking the creativity and ease, having heightened awareness of who we are and what we care about, and the purpose, how we apply our values and align, and feeling nourished. So that's the key sites. I just backtracked to keep both Sunny and team and someone else who joined in, so they're not, you see the kind of bit of the context. I'll stop here. Stop sharing here, I mean. Anything else you want to share? Sorry, I saw Jaya come in. For those who stayed from all the beginning, anything else? Faiza, could I hear from you when you share something?
Yeah, I think based on my experience in the corporate life as an internal coach, that I face many expectations from the coaches, right? And then based on their statements, sometimes we understand that's not the situations when it comes to, you know, their expectations, the policy or the way it works in the corporate life on the high levels. That so many times I have to, usually I will offer, and they will ask, and I will confirm that I can give them separate sessions when it comes to mentoring. So yeah, I think I couldn't agree more from what your experience sharing earlier as well. Same that yeah, you just being genuine and authentic, and then a good, I think a good intention is being in the senior management. Sometimes you also have to have this kind of good intention to empower and grow people. So and making sure that, because sometimes you know that not all leaders communicate about the high level policy to their team, you know. So when you identify that kind of situations, you jump in and you try to give that kind of understanding to the team, because the more transparent, of course, with some limitations that you have as a leader, right? But yeah, I think as long as you know the boundaries, the limitations on giving transparent informations or communication to the lower levels, that always a good way to do the supervision as well. That's from my
Yes.
experience.
Thanks, Faiza.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. So there are sometimes in an organization, there are information that's only preview to some people, and not everyone gets that information. So there's hidden information, so hidden agenda as well. So that's the thing that we want to be able to navigate when we're actually doing team coaching, because that's happens
But
also.
sometimes it's not really hidden agenda. There are some leaders that think that, oh, you don't need to, know this kind of informations, but you just jump into conclusion that the team do not really have to get this information, which is, I don't know. I mean, for me, as long as you can share, and it's not really that confidential, it's not really a company strategy, you just share it. I mean, like after you have a management meetings, then you can share to your team, so they are being involved. I think the message is they are feeling that they are involved in the business strategy.
Because it's when we are comfortable to speak up and say, could you share with us what's happened, what's behind this? They sometimes they don't feel they need to tell. Management or leaders sometimes don't feel they need to tell, because it takes a lot of effort to explain. And they feel that you've got enough information. Whereas as you say, if the management, we want to empower, so therefore, and want us people to be involved, and therefore be in line with the purpose of the organization, the more they should be sharing. And I feel that even in an organization, we would be in a place to influence what's happening if we are more internal. And I've been in corporates where I will speak up my mind and be influencing as much as possible, so that it permeates through the organization. So we have a role to play wherever we are, whether as a coach, a team leader, or supervisor, whatever roles we are, we have a role to play to think about the others around us. So that's beautiful what you say, Faiza. So can we hear one more before we close? Anyone else like to share a perspective?
I think for my question, I think I learned the clarity of the agreement on the beginning. So it must be clear the output, the process, so we can know if there is incongruence, we can talk and discuss in advance. So when there's the coaching sessions, it will be smooth and we can talk positive things, not argue about things that can maybe discourage the teams or us as a coach.
Yes, thanks, Budi. Yeah, even upfront, there is room to negotiate and room to influence as much as we can in the right direction with a positive intention. So it's just a beautiful thought. It's like the efforts to put in front is worthwhile. Like you manage a program, a project, you actually spend a lot of time designing and planning, then execution. Once you execute, you just kind of go along with that. So that's a great thought there, Budi. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? What about Ina or
Yeah,
Nanny?
thank you. Thank you for sharing the all these materials. I acknowledge that we all have emotion that sometimes we can control, but we also have emotion that we cannot control. So just acknowledge being authentic, and then where that in the condition of the team, for example, we will have a lot of emotion, all the dynamics of the emotion, then how we manage it, and then acknowledge and knowing about our values and purpose, the alignment. And then I love the last statement from your slide that mentioned about the boundaries is not limitation, but how we connect everything's and then enrich our presence to our clients or sponsors. So thank you, Team Choo, for sharing that.
You. Okay, Nanny, you want to say something?
Yeah. Yes, I would share something through my newly coaching experience. Yeah, because about a couple of months ago, I have a coaching team, and then they said, this is only the top leader wants, not us. So, and then at the first time, because we have a 4 session of the coaching at the time. So at the first coaching session, they mentioned all the things about their leaders. They mentioned all the things about their leaders, and then we have to report to the sponsor. They actually don't want to do like what their leader said, because actually they think that their leader needs this coaching session, not them. So the sponsor talk again to their leader, and then make another separate coaching session with the leaders and other session with the team. So at the end of the session, is good, because the team leaders is now knowing that they also need to lead. They not always to be here. They're not pointing their hand to the team, but they also have to involve to their team to work together and go through to the goal that they want to reach later on. So that's my experience during the team coaching. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Thank
That's
you.
great. Yeah, because and coaching is permeates throughout the whole organization from top down and not just bottom up. Then you actually have coaching conversations going on. So that's why some organizations they do differentiate between a coaching session and a counseling session. When they have coaching is no more possible with that particular staff, then they go into counseling, but it's always coaching conversation. So it's great when an organization recognizes that the leader also would be a good place to have as a coach, as a manager. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Nanny. So I'll pass back to as we close the session. Damien, you're mute.
Thank you very much for the great presentation. I really appreciate the preparation for this webinar, and also I want to apologize one more time for the confusion on time. Thanks everybody for being patient and forgiving. I really appreciate that very much. And I will, with the time differences, team, I apologize. I think I don't know what the flyer said. I need to go back and see what's happening with that flyer. I promise next year I will be paying more attention to the details of each country, each place, and be at the right time everywhere, So That's my promise. But I also want to invite everybody to participate and to present next year. This is done by the community, by the member. Like since Joe has been coming to these meetings since we started 4 years ago. Sunny, you have also been here many times. I want to invite everyone to you don't have to prepare a session like Sinjo today. Can just facilitate a conversation. Let's say, let's talk about this topic. And then you share a couple of ideas, and then people go to small groups and discuss the topic. It doesn't have to be a lecture. It's just a place so we can exchange, we can learn from each other. So I want to invite everybody here, team. You may want to do something. I know Ina and Kunia, maybe you can partner together to facilitate the conversation. If you don't want to do it alone, I know Sunny has done this many times. Sunny really need your help here to come up with, maybe want to do something creative. You want to experiment here with something. Take the opportunity to play with an exercise or anything you want to do. And Jaya, you also have presented here in the past. If you want to send me some idea for next year, we need sessions every month. It's always the first Wednesday of the month in Asia, Tuesday evening in the US. Let me know when are you available, what time you want to cover, so we can have the schedule for next year. So I need your help here. So I want to wish you happy holidays. We're not meeting in December because it's too early in the year to meet. But next session will be the last Wednesday in January. Okay, so this is when we're meeting again. So we're not meeting at the end of December. So we're going to skip 1 month. And probably that first session I will facilitate, since we don't have a speaker yet, I will facilitate the conversation. Since Joe, we can continue what you brought today about ethical issues. I think there is a need for us as supervisors to be thinking about these ethical issues. And there is a conference coming up in a couple of weeks, so I can also bring here some of the learnings from the conference to you. And so you can count on that. And I want to invite everybody to think about that. For people in the US, I think that this is sending two of us. Happy Thanksgiving this week. And for everybody else, happy holidays if you celebrate. And thanks for coming and participating. And for people who came a little bit late, I will make the recording available. Sincho, do you feel comfortable sharing the recording with the people who are not here? Yeah, so we can share that with people who came a
Just
little
a
bit
note,
later.
January, the last week is actually also the Lunar New Year, so I may not be able to join because it's Chinese New Year, the last week.
At the end of January.
Yes, January last week is actually Chinese New Year for us.
Okay. So we need to look into that to
Oh
see
my,
when
I'll
we need
skip
to.
that. I'll join the next one.
Okay,
Thank you.
or we may change that. Let me figure out what we can do about it. Trying to be sensitive to all of the different countries and festivities. So we may change the day and time for that one. So thanks everybody. Thank you again, Cynthia, for the great session. Thanks everyone for staying and your flexibility.
On
So
the
see you
way.
next year. Okay,
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Thank you, Damian.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thanks
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Timcho, and I appreciate your flexibility very
problem.
much.